Hello outdoor fans. Look, I've got 3 bikes. My bike and the 2 test bikes I've ridden the last 2 days. Now each of these bikes has its own video on how I find the bike. My Patriot videos a few months ago and is an e-bike changed my life Patriot 2000 kilometer review video. And the last 2 videos on the channel probably were the Haibike Pinion and Amflow test. But while I've got all 3 together, what I wanted to do was yes, compare and contrast the bikes themselves, but also some of the componentry, because there's some good examples here. People have said in the past, oh, you just say that you like Hope stuff because I've had a long-term relationship with Hope since the 90s, or I just like me Orange because and Vittoria tyres because they sponsored my race series that I've been running for the last 10 years. But actually, on these bikes, with the differences, there are not just the motors, there are some differences in the same brands but different models of the components. So it's not a brand thing. It does come down to the exact spec of the componentry. So, for instance, if I start with my Orange, and bear in mind all these bikes have been used, so they are mucky. They all need a clean. But I thought I'd do a real world test and review of them when they've just been used and things are fresh in my mind. So one of the things that I don't like, or about the only thing I don't like about the Patriot, is these Fox Performance forks. I find that the damping is not that great. I've said it before, I said it on the review, I've said it on various videos, that I feel let down by those forks. And the last, when I rode the static, it had the Zeb Ultimates. When I rode the Haibike, it had the Zeb Ultimates, and I was like, oh, they are so much better. But then on the Amflow, with the Fox factories, even though they're 36s, even though actually they were set up for a slightly heavier rider, so you can see I didn't use all the travel, I wasn't using that 140 mil of the travel, but the factory damper inside these, I could tell that was much better. So yes, I have been raving about the Zeb Ultimates, but it's not a RockShox versus Fox thing. It's a budget line Fox 38 performance versus a Fox factory. And I said that, like, even though my Fox factory forks on my Alpine that were from 2019 feel better than I expected, a 2024 spec Fox 38, even though it was the performance to be, similar to what they were in 2019, and they just aren't. These are exactly as I want forks to feel, even though they can still be, like, I could tell the damping was better. Obviously the sag wasn't quite right, the full travel, only using like 140 mil of them compared to like 170 mil on mine. But the difference night and day between the Fox factory and the Fox Performance. So I will try and get the upgrade damper to fit in those, because it was night and day. And again, componentry. Continental tyres on this it's not that I didn't like them, they were all good until you were just on the edge of the tyre, whether that was trying to ride across a camber or you were leaning over in a corner. They were very skittish on the edge. And actually Ian crashed twice on this bike, both on camber, trying to use the edge of the tyre. And these particular Continental Crypto, or whatever that is, it says. Sorry? Crypto tile. the edge performance on them, not that great. Whereas we have got Continentals on here, so same brand, but these are the Argentile. And even though those are brand new tyres, and these you can see have got a fair bit of wear, and actually, look at them. In fact, is this a 5-ride-old bike still?
No, the tyre is it?
The tyre, I was going to...
1400 miles old.
Right, I was going to say, but even this tyre with its knobs half hanging off because it's done a lot, gripped better than that brand new tyre over there. I don't know if it's like the Maxxis where the, oh, these are soft ones, they're like the OE spec, but like you could tell the difference. And it was night and day between the two tyres. Even though those are brand new, these are heavily worn. So it isn't, you know, it isn't that when I say, oh, I don't like something, it's not a brand thing, it is a performance thing. And also, we now get to the brakes. So yesterday, I was complaining about the power and, well, there was just no power, so you couldn't even get to modulation, because these Maguras, the cheaper Maguras, quite plasticky, they just felt bad, and they didn't feel like they had a lot of retardation, very poor brakes. However, these Maguras, which are a higher spec one, these are whatever they are, but these had really nice feel, plenty of braking, other than the piston. I think it's just because it's a new caliper, just needs lubing up to get it to work, and then should be fine. So even though the front brake was sticking a little bit, the performance of them, the feel of them, the modulation of them, once I'd, like they don't have an on the fly adjuster, but we adjusted the reach just to match what I wanted. And once that was done, I was quite happy with those. So it's not that I was like, oh, they're not hope on this Haibike, so I don't like them. It was they were just shit, and that's why I didn't like them. Whereas these, I could live with these as long as the sticky caliper bit was sorted. Then nothing wrong with those Maguras in terms of power, modulation, or whatever. So, you know, when I am, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to ride different bikes, and try and ride 10 different bikes this year, not just to, you know, look at the different motors and the different specs, but to see the different componentry, what is good, what isn't good, and not just the things that I have been using for the last 10 years and I'm comfy with. So, you know, it's been really good to ride back to back, different bikes, different motors, different forks, different brakes, different tyres, and see the difference. So, you know, I still like my Vittorias, and I still like my Bosch motor. I don't like how fast I have been wearing through chain rings, cassettes, like basically 350 kilometers for a chain, 700 kilometers for a cassette and chain ring, so basically 2 chains, and then that's worn. But the power and the feel of the Bosch motor, really like it. And then onto the pinion. Now I think that this sort of setup with a gearbox drive belt for an e-bike, I think that is the future, and I still think it's the future after riding this bike, but it's not quite there. It's got the potential, but the gear changes are a little slower, particularly sort of between the 3 sets of 4, so going from 4th to 5th and going from 8th to 9th, where they have to do like a different shift within the box, or a double shift within the box. They are a bit slower, and that was noticeable despite my drivetrain on the bike that I normally ride being quite worn and not being quite as smooth shifting as a brand new kit. It was still slower. It was acceptable, I got used to it, and particularly it seemed to get faster once we got like a couple of mile into the ride. I don't know if that's because like the oil had warmed up and things had been moving a little bit, so there was a bit less stiction, or if I just dialed into it, but it was acceptable, but noticeable that there was that little bit of lag on the gear shift. And the other thing with the pinion drive, you know, yes, it was noisier than the Bosch on power, and but then you had the absolute silent descending. So, you know, I still think that a gearbox setup will be the future of e-bikes. This particular one, don't think it's quite there. I'd still quite happily have one, deal with the downsides for the more reliability, more easy to clean, and what I'm finding, because I'm riding more uphill grass, heather sort of stuff on the e-bike and getting stuff caught in the rear mech, that not having a rear mech, definite advantage. I really like the idea, and riding this bike has not put me off the idea of a gearbox drive. So I'm hoping that the development continues and we get something better. The one weak point of that, it had enough power in the higher modes, and today's ride where me and Ian swapped bikes, like yesterday I used more power than Ian, but today when we swapped bikes I also used more power than Ian, even before I did a big uphill sprint on the bike in full, you know, 1000 watt boost mode. So it has enough power on the higher levels, and the different modes were quite fine. But when you sort of stall out and you are at a very low cadence and you try and put that power in, this motor does lack. I don't think it is quite as powerful as the Bosch or obviously the Amflow. It's got enough power, but particularly when you drop in cadence, there is a definite drop in power from that sort of almost stalled, which on a technical climb can be a make or break of you carrying on or having to dab. So, you know, the motor could be better, but it is still, you know, still more than acceptable, and you would still sort of, as you know, as you ride it and it is your bike, you would dial into exactly what to do, what gear to be in, and what to expect from the motor. Now, the DJI motor. To be honest, I wanted to sort of ride that and go, oh yeah, it's all power, but it doesn't quite have the rideability of the Bosch. That's what I sort of thought I would find, but no, this Amflow, or the DJI motor, it is very intuitive on your riding. It is quieter than the Bosch, and its ride characteristics are brilliant. It is superior in every way to the Bosch motor. I wanted to find something that was, you know, because often with things there's a compromise. If something is better, something else will be worse. But no, it is just brilliant. I did find, and bearing in mind this was my first, the first time I put it in full power and even used the boost mode up a technical climb, sprinting to try and get a com, dropping Ian by 2 minutes up a 14-minute climb when he's a better rider, more fit than me, and he was on this bike. Absolutely brilliant. I did crash it. I did go well, basically the front wheel came up and I went all the way over. In the high power mode, the way it kicks in the power, it doesn't kick it in all at once when you sort of get to that sort of stall that I was talking about, up a step that sort of pulled out the downside of the pinion drive where it didn't have the power. It does limit the power, which is quite nice to give it that controllability, but then when it sort of steps up to the next power, there's another surge of power, and that's what was catching me out. That's what was getting me to wheelie. The front end on this being much lighter than what I'm used to, it was wheelie, and that's what caused me crash. That second bit of power kicked in, and the front wheel just come up and I went straight over the boys. But I don't think that's a downside of the motor. I think that's just I hadn't done a technical climb flat out. I was sprinting to see how much of a Strava whore I could be, and probably just didn't have enough ride time, enough seat time on the bike to get its full benefit. Went a bit too much and whatever. But I think that again, you would dial into that, and you know, is the Amflow DJI combo worth the hype? It is a fantastic setup, and I had a lot of fun, and it is fast in that sort of 1000-watt mode. So yeah, a little bit more time to dial into that 1000 watts and I will be used to it. I think I've just seen that I have actually scratched it here. That's where this is a 2-day-old bike, and I've just realised now that I have scratched it. So yeah, and actually when I did the Cube test ride with the Gen4 Bosch, and that had these electric gears, I found that they were very fast. I really liked that speed. I hadn't, in the time that I had it, I didn't quite dial into the button shift because it was something I'd not used before, but I could tell it was only my sort of muscle memory on the use of those that was slowing down the gear change, and the gear change was fast. Having ridden the Pinion the day before, I managed to be much better dialed in, much more muscle memory on changing gears, and then the difference between how fast that Sram electronic gear setup changed versus the Pinion, very, very noticeable. So yeah, that was like, you know, slower than I wanted, and this was super fast. So one other thing that became apparent in riding different bikes, I have 155mm cranks. The Amflow has 155mm cranks. This Haibike has 165mm. Now generally an extra inch is good, but the extra 10mm, I don't know the relative bottom bracket heights of all these bikes. Here they are on the screen for you. But what I actually found riding is I did get pedal strikes several times on this bike, and I generally don't on mine. I didn't get any pedal strikes on the Amflow. So that sort of 10mm difference with my foot here, because this is recessed and there is a short bit here, I banged the bone of my ankle right into it. So not only did I not like the 165 cranks for the amount of times I had the pedal strikes, I didn't like this design where the nut is not flush to here, and you have this sharp edge, and you know, I actually hit my ankle into it, so it's not like a theoretical, ooh, that might happen. That's what happened, and that's what made me notice it. And not that I had any pedal strikes, but you look on the Amflow, these cranks on here, nice and flush, and you look on the Hope that I'm used to, and again, flush here. So yeah, that was something I didn't like about those cranks. Now obviously the amount of pedal strikes mainly depends on the height of your bottom bracket, but we all know long, low and slack is what you generally want from a bike. And if a shorter crank, particularly on an e-bike where you might not need the leverage that you have on a longer road bike or pedal mountain bike, so with the e-bike assistance you can get away with a shorter crank with the motor making up for the torque, then yes, I definitely I didn't really think it made that much difference before, but I definitely noticed the downsides of that extra 10mm on this Haibike. So yeah, but I think obviously componentry can be swapped, but that was just something that I noticed when riding. Now all three of these bikes have different droppers. Didn't really have any issue with any of the droppers, but I did find with this the Fox on the Amflow, and maybe just compared to the SDG that I'm used to with the Hope lever, basically I am used to pressing it, feeling the tension, and that being enough. The Hope lever on an SDG dropper, where basically you don't have to press it fully, you sort of can feel the tension, and then you can do the moving, particularly if you're just trying to get not so much going from the two extremes, but just doing a little bit of adjust. You can just press it, feel that tension, and I think it is just me dialing in, but I found that when I had tension on the lever, the dropper still won't move, and I had to then push it a little bit more. But I say, I've done one ride on that. I think that is only a dial-in thing. I don't think it's anything to do with the dropper itself, but it just meant that if you did see me sort of, I can't remember I don't know which bits of footage I'll use from the test ride, but if you see me struggling with the dropper, it isn't anything to do with the dropper itself, just my me dialing into it. So cockpits. This has a lovely clean cockpit with, you know, you've got some of your buttons that basically control your screen here, and some here. Everything's sort of tucked in. This is a nice alloy bracket, very little going on, really good, no issue with that, just a little bit of unfamiliarity with getting through the menus and whatever, but I quite liked the cockpit on the Amflow. Onto the Haibike, there seemed to be much more going on. I eventually worked out how to use the walk mode, but with this shifter, you can see it's very plasticky. Ian broke this today and broke this bit of the lever here on his crash, which we're putting down to these tyres not being as good on the edges. He fell off twice with that on the ride, and brought that, so that sort of, you know, was exposed and is very plasticky. And I've had a similar problem. If you've been watching the channel for a long time, you'll know that I have had 2 of these that have both broken. I then glued it on with Subaru, which worked brilliantly, and I need to do that again until it didn't, but it lasted much longer than the plastic clamp. But I think so this is a Pinion 200. There are different options you can get for the Bosch, but this, especially with how much it overhangs, is a definite weak point. Going over the rocky stuff, it moves around, it cracks the pivot point on the clamp. It's all plastic and it just fails. So you know that isn't that great on, you know, for something that is supposed to be the top notch. So yeah, just how that clamps on isn't great, and the same for this on the pinion drive, especially with how plastic it is, whereas you're on the DJI, and yeah, you've got, you know, some buttons here, some buttons over here, but none of them are like hanging off and exposed. And the one that is on the Sram, it's a nice solid alloy bracket. I'm sure it is breakable, and I'm sure that people may do something, but it wasn't a problem that we had. Whereas both of these, you know, I say this, it's not like this is an old bike. This was its 5th or 6th ride today, when and it was only a simple crash on grass, adverse camber grass, and it just broke that. And as I say, I've gone through 2 of these, and I do need to glue this back on. So there's just little things to think about when you are having things hanging off your boys, exactly how that you know, how that would work. So yeah, I think that, say, each of these bikes has a separate review video. Recently the Pinion Haibike and the DJI Amflow, and a few months ago for my how an e-bike changed my life after basically riding, you know, I've been riding for just shy of 40 years. I did my first race 36.5 years ago, first off-road race 36.5 years ago, so I've been riding a long time, always on analog obviously, and now in the year of my 50th birthday I have swapped to e-bikes, and I'm very happy with the adventures that an e-bike can take me on. I'm loving the technical climbs, and less bothered about the ultimate gnarly descents. Just as I get older and I want to, you know, ride more, then anything that can just reduce the risk a little bit, and if you can have your fun on the climbs and still enjoy the descents but not quite push it to the limit so that you know, don't get injured, he says after crashing on a climb today, then it's good. So I'm happy that the e-bikes are my future, and the adventures that they can take me on, the summits that they take me on, the sort of range of paths and draggy climbs that I just wouldn't want to do on a pedal bike, where you can just, you know, get up on an e-bike. Yeah, the exploration factor for me of an e-bike over an analog is brilliant. So I have now ridden 5 different e-bikes this year, with the Cube and the Static, as well as these 3. My aim is to ride 10 in the year, so I need to do another 5, and that will give me the experience of the different componentry, the tyres, the dampers, the brakes, the droppers, so that I can have an informed view. You can't really have an informed view until you've got a breadth of experience, and for the last 10 years I have just ridden what I know and like, and been very happy with, you know, Orange Hope stuff and Fox Forks until these. But now I know it's just the performance versus the factory, yeah. So hopefully I'll ride some more, get some different views. Each bike not only have, you know, different motors and suspension and handlebars and tyres, but until I experience them all, I won't have that depth of knowledge to be able to tell you in the video. So I hope that's been useful, interesting, and I hope it also shows that it's not that I, you know, like what I like and don't like what I don't like for, you know, for any other reason than how it performs. I'm trying to, you know, detach from any sort of allegiances that I've had in the past and just see what I like on current stuff. And yeah, so thanks very much, and remember, like and subscribe, because there will be hopefully 5 more bike tests coming, including the Maxon motor, hopefully, on the static. The static I rode had the Shimano motor on, but I'm hoping to, by the end of the year, get a test ride on the Maxon, that new, well, not new, but that getting more popular motor from the Swiss. So I'm looking forward to that one.